Welcome to the Employee to Boss podcast, a podcast for everyone with an entrepreneurial spirit. Every week, I am joined by successful guests in all different industries and stages of business who will share what their experience was like transitioning from employee to boss. Expect action steps, inspiration, and hot topics. This is a resource for you if you're wanting to start a business, go all in on your side hustle, get to the next level in your thriving business, or just hear what it's like taking the leap to becoming your own boss. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast production agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. Let's dive into today's topic. Today, we're talking all about insurance for entrepreneurs on today's episode of the Employee to Boss podcast. I'm joined by Katherine Phillips, a licensed insurance broker from Florida. She owns her own insurance business, specializing in health insurance and life insurance, and is Medicare certified. So today we're talking all about what entrepreneurs need to know when they are getting their own health insurance. And this is a very timely episode because open enrollment just started. You have a couple more weeks to be able to enroll yourself into insurance. And I know that this is a big sticking point for people who want to get into entrepreneurship, especially if you have a family where if you leave your 9-to-5, you lose your insurance. But that doesn't mean that you can't get insurance at all. It just means that you have to purchase your own. So working with someone like Katherine, which it's completely free to connect with her and work with her. She makes commission from the insurance agencies. So basically, Katherine is just here to make your life easier when you're on the hunt for what insurance will work best for you and anyone else who you may be supporting. Katherine can talk to anyone in any state, but she is licensed in 10 states. Like I mentioned, she's located in Florida, but I'm in Washington and she's going to help me find my insurance here. And so definitely connect with her. All of her links are in the show notes and you can find out more about where she can help you find insurance, if she's the right insurance broker for you, and all that good stuff. But in this episode, we're talking not only about entrepreneurs insurance and like what you need to know and how to get it. We're also talking about her journey to starting her own insurance business. You'll find a lot in this episode because she is commission based. She runs her own business, and since open enrollment is only a couple weeks, she makes most of her money in one part of the year and then has to maintain clients. There's a lot to learn from Katherine, and I'm excited for you to listen to this episode. If you have any questions for Katherine or I, all of our links are in the show notes, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Hey, Katherine, thank you so much for joining me on the Employee to Boss podcast. I am so excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we actually connected here in Seattle, but you are located in Florida. I interviewed your sister for the podcast, Alexa Phillips, and her episode is out live if anyone wants to go listen as well. So I'm excited to have sisters on the podcast. How fun is that?
Yeah, we're, sisters are very creative and we love to bounce ideas off each other. We're both entrepreneurs. So the event we met at was super fun. The CEO Society and the little coffee shop was so cute. So it was good to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, I'm excited that we get to continue this conversation. And even though you and your sister are both entrepreneurs, you are in very different industries. So you are in the insurance world. And as I was just saying before I pressed record, I don't know a lot about the insurance world. So I'm excited to learn alongside the listeners today.
Yeah, hey, that's okay because when I first started insurance, I knew nothing about it. So that's part of my story, and I think it's going to be great to hear it because a lot of people they may relate to it. So,
Yeah, totally. All right, well, let's hear it.
yeah.
What did your story look like? How did you go from employee to boss?
Yeah, so my story starts back in 2019, and it's actually fitting that we're doing this interview now because I am celebrating 5 years as an
Oh my
insurance
gosh,
broker. So that's really
congratulations.
special to me. So back in 2019, I started my journey to become employed. Like I just graduated college with a degree in public health and health communication. And throughout college, I was really interested in doing marketing and social media and health campaigns. So I thought I could find jobs like that out in the workplace. And when I started interviewing for these jobs, there was nothing out there. Like it
Hmm.
was just, bare nothing. And the jobs that were out there were very low income. It wasn't going to be sustainable, especially living in Colorado at the time. Denver was becoming very expensive. So I needed to possibly find an alternative. And I came across a job posting on LinkedIn. It was for insurance, becoming an insurance broker. There was a sales leader nearby who was looking to build his agency and was looking for new agents. And at first, I was really hesitant. Insurance is not something that I was interested in. It's boring. Like, no one really likes it. It's expensive. You're being seen in like a negative light. But I decided to just check it out anyway because I wasn't getting any job interviews at the
Hmm.
time. So I go meet the sales leader. He ended up becoming my mentor later. But anyway, so I meet with him and I decide like, okay, I'll just like kind of check this out. He invited me to come to a meeting with some of the other people from the agency he had hired on. And I was one of the like OG members of this agency. There was just me and like 4 or 5 other people. So I think to me that was really special because I was also helping him like build his business and we were kind of doing something together. But when I checked it out, it was just such a different experience because I just had spent 4 years in college being taught public health
Hmm.
and taught that you have to get a job to be successful or be in academia to learn about public health and to teach others about public health or have a public health degree. And now I'm being exposed to a world where my sales leader's telling me, hey, you can earn unlimited income, you can work for yourself, you can set your own hours, you can help people in the process and have financial freedom. And I'm like, what? Like, is that really possible? Like, how can I do that? And then it said, oh, but the catch is it's commission based. You're not
Hmm.
going to get an income, it's not set salary. So for me, that was really scary because I'm like, how am I gonna survive? I don't sell anything. I had no sales experience. My business experience was limited. I had no idea what I was doing. So I decided to just kind of, you know, do it. I went for it. I just kind of signed up, started the contracting process. This was in August of 2019. And then in September, I took my insurance exam. I studied for it for about a month and then took it. And then just kind of started shadowing my sales leader and sat in on his sales calls. He like would teach us how to sell. He would teach us, how to handle clients and run a business. So it was kind of this like information overload, and it was something that I basically felt like I was diving into the deep end. And on top of that, like I mentioned, my first sale and I started was in like October, so the fall.
Hmm.
Well, the fall is our busiest time in the insurance world. So I'm starting and it's just this really fast paced environment. And when November came around, my sales leader was like, hey, it's going to be really busy for me. I can help you, but you're going to have to kind of like do this yourself. So I somehow like bumbled through open enrollment, which is our busiest time, sold some policies, like did what I could, and came out with like 50 new clients. And
Wow.
it was just like, it was exciting. It was amazing to kind of just see the potential of what I did. But then after open enrollment hit in January, it dries up.
Hmm.
Insurance it's slow. People only need it if they lose their job or they move or something like that. So it's really a different experience when it's not busy and you kind of have to have this mentality of like sticking to it and building your business. And I think for me, that kind of made me take a step back and question, like, is this really right for me? and I basically wanted to consider other opportunities. I wanted to quit. I considered like nursing for a hot minute. It wasn't until like COVID hit in 2020 where, things really kind of blew up for me, where I was able to work from home and
Mhm.
get a lot more clients because people had lost their jobs, and I was able to grow my business. And once I hit that point where I was all in on my business, it really grew from there. So since then, I've really grown. It's really been a great experience. But I think if I didn't take that risk and I didn't go all in on my business and wanting to make it work and getting rid of those doubts, then I don't think I'd be where I am today.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks so much for sharing that story because that's so interesting. And you bring up a really good point of you do have to be all in or you see reasons to leave, like I think any business and entrepreneurship, we have busy seasons, we have slow seasons. If you're selling a product or a service like I do, it really depends on who reaches out to me, who I reach out to, what connections I make, And so it's the same with you. Like it is how much you put in. And when you are 100% in on your business, then you start seeing those results and you start seeing that real reason of like, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, I agree because until I hit that point where I was committed to making this work, that's when the doubt crept in. So I would
Mhm.
say if anyone is looking to make that jump, or they're kind of in it, they just made it and they're really like down, like nothing's happening for them, like you do have to stick with it and just keep going, because like the grass will be greener on the other side, but you won't know unless you try.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the points that we were talking about that I think a lot of people in the corporate world or any, 9 to 5 type of job, they have benefits. And I do see the benefits of entrepreneurship, but they're not the typical, insurance, dental, vision, 401k type of benefits that you would get in the security of one of those jobs. So, as we were talking, like, I know that's a big reason why a lot of people don't leave their jobs. Maybe they have a family, maybe they just don't even know how to get their own insurance. Like, can you talk to us a little bit about insurance for entrepreneurs and self-employed people?
Yeah, of course. So, first of all, I think this topic is really has a lot of misconceptions. So, people, they don't really know, like you said, know much about it. They kind of are uneducated, and because of that, it keeps them from making that change, because they think the only benefits that they can get, especially for health insurance, dental, vision, whatever it might be, is through their employer. And if you've been working for years and that's kind of your only experience, then yeah, I could see how that's kind of your view of the world. But in reality, when you're an individual looking for insurance outside of an employer, you actually have more options. We actually have private options, and we actually have options through Obamacare on the state marketplace and the federal marketplace. So that is one misconception that I think a lot of people have. And I think another misconception is that, the plans are going to be the same. I think a lot of people, they want to get the exact same plan that they have, and they're scared that they can't replicate that, or that's really what's keeping them from making that jump. And the truth is, it's not going to be the same, so you just have to face that reality like right
Totally.
now, and just understand that employer insurance, of course, is very good, because of course you have a lot of people participating in the plan, and you also have these insurance companies giving these companies a very good deal on the plan. So, yeah, of course, it's going to be better than something that you can get on your own. So, once you accept that reality and you know that, okay, I can get something similar and it's going to work out at one point or another, then I think you can be confident that you'll find something.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that point, you don't have to do it alone either. There's insurance agents like yourself that can support you through the process. I think that you're right. This is an important topic because, I went from being a student to being an intern, and I never really was fully in the corporate world. So I never in any of my jobs had insurance benefits. So
Okay.
I never had that experience, but when I started my own business, I was like, okay, I need to like figure out my insurance. Last year I broke my foot and I just bought some random insurance that was cheap. And then after I broke my foot, I was like, wow, I need to find an urgent care. And the closest urgent care was like 45 minutes away.
Oh no.
I was like, these are things like I definitely should have worked with an insurance agent to actually figure out what benefits, what everything I should be having. So is that what you recommend? Like not doing it on your own, finding someone that can help you and support you through that process?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, working with an insurance broker, it's free. Like, we're not
Mhm.
allowed to take any money. So,
Okay, that's so interesting. I want to hear more about that.
so legally, we are not allowed to take any money from you to advise you or help you enroll. So, the way we make money is through the insurance company directly. So, if I enroll you in, XYZ plan, XYZ plan is going to pay me a portion of your monthly premium, and that's how I get paid. But you're not paying me for the consultation, for me to do your application for you, for me to advise you on what's best. So, I mean, why not use me? Because you can just do the same thing on your own, but like you said, you might get something that's not going to help you. You might get a plan that's not a certified plan that gives you minimum essential benefits, that's going to cover, major things like hospital stays, urgent care, prescriptions, doctor visits. We want all of those things covered, but if you don't read the fine print, your plan may not cover that because you just kind of went online without help. So we're out there to help you, and we're everywhere. You're going to find one in your local community.
Yeah. And what resources would you say is the best place to find one?
So there are a lot of places to find brokers. The mistake people make is they go online they say like free quote insurance on Google. The problem with doing that is you're putting your information in and essentially selling it to these third party sources who are then going to give it to marketers, and then you're going to get thousands of calls and emails from random people across the country. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend searching like, insurance broker near me, and then it'll pop up, local people like me or whoever's next in your zip code, or even search like insurance broker and then like put your zip code or insurance broker, Florida. And it's going to find more results that are more local to you, and that you're dealing with someone who's going to call you, who's near to you. Maybe you can go to their office, whereas if you're getting thousands of calls, you don't really know who's a telemarketer and who's genuine. So that
Yeah.
would be the best way. And then another way is like get a referral. If you talk to people like, hey, how'd you get your insurance, like what did you do, maybe they've used a broker. So referrals are another great way to get you know your sources, get your insurance.
Yeah, that's really good information. So thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of people don't know that. And so that is really good for any entrepreneurs to know. I think that having someone that can help you through the process is great because I know for myself, I don't have time to read the fine print. And
Yeah.
that is why I ended up in the situation that I did, driving 45 minutes with a broken foot.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times, once you're in that plan, you can't switch. So
Yeah.
you kind of have to, make sure your choice you make once you leave your employer is like a good choice until the next open enrollment.
Totally, totally. Okay, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I want to get back to you being commission based and really how you structure your life and your planning around this kind of thing. Because I'm sure before you were commission based, like you had never been commission based before, correct?
Mhm.
You had, salaries or hourly pay or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So yeah, of course, I had a salary and now I am commission based. We make our income in two ways. It really depends on who you work with and the insurance companies you work with. I work with all insurance companies, so they pay me a little bit different depending on their pay structure.
Mm.
But I get commission, so that means people who stay on your book of business for months at a time. We get paid monthly per person per plan. And then we also get what's called advances. So not every insurance company offers this, but sometimes you get an advance, which is basically like it's almost like a loan. They're giving you the money right then and there after you make the sale and help someone enroll. So that's a good way, like when you start out, to have money to pay your bills right away. But again, it's not everybody, has that option, especially if you work for an agency like State Farm or a captive place, for example, that's going to only allow you to sell their products. So that's going to be something to consider if you
Yeah.
are, starting to get this type of job. But to answer your question with like budgeting and how I do my bills, when I first started out, luckily I was living at home, so I didn't have that many bills. And now that I've grown my business, luckily of course, my income has increased. But in the beginning, I really just had to use the money I made weekly and then like save it for that next week. So it was like kind of living like paycheck to paycheck almost. But luckily, when you are paid commissions, you do get paid very frequently. So if you have bills coming that week, you can know like, okay, this is, how much money I'm making, and then kind of know how much you need to make that week or how much is coming in that week. So it really just depends. And I know agents who sometimes they base their sales like that they do that week off of the bills and stuff they need to meet.
Mm,
So it kind of is like a motivation. I mean, I never worked like that. I thought that was kind of stressful, but
for sure.
you could do that. Like, okay, I'm working like, all these hours to meet my bills or like meet my rent at the end of the month. But, you could do that in insurance. You could just really like work super hard, get paid like really instantly. But I prefer to do it where I just work weekly and then use that money I earn that week for like next week. And then a lot of bills are always due at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. So you just kind of save your money to do that. So it is like a lot of financial planning. One book that I really enjoyed reading was called Profit First.
Mhm.
And that really helped me learn how to take my commissions and make it in a way where I'm not stressed out about money, because in the book, the author talks about how to basically save money for yourself to pay your bills first instead of just, having all this stress living paycheck to paycheck. So I would recommend that to listeners if they're trying to learn to set up their life and their finances, because I'm not a financial advisor. I can't really speak to that. But that book is a good resource, and the author, does give really good tips and shows you how to set up your finances.
Awesome. I'll definitely link that in the show notes for any of the listeners to check out. But that's really inspiring how you learned how to do all of this when you were just starting off. Because as you mentioned, you didn't have a business background, so you had to learn the business side. You didn't have a sales background, so you had to learn the sales
Yeah,
side. And
yeah.
you obviously, none of us really have a financial background unless we
Oh,
went to school for accounting. So you had to learn that as
nothing.
well.
I knew nothing. Honestly, it took me a while to learn how to spend my money and manage
Mhm.
it. I used QuickBooks Self-Employed. I don't know if anyone has used that for being self-employed. I highly recommend it because it's very easy to track your expenses, and at the end of the year, your accountant can use it really easily to do your taxes. It's also a good way to manage your quarterly tax payments, because if you're self-employed, you pay quarterly taxes. So that was a really big tool for me, because before I used that, I was trying to like track it on Excel or like check my bank statements, and I would forget what I spent. So it
Mhm.
just got really stressful. And that was one tool I definitely would recommend. But yeah, it was honestly a big learning curve. And yeah, there were times where maybe I was behind on a bill or two. And yeah, I had to put it on a credit card. But that's what kind of starting out is. You just kind of, take that risk and, you'll pay it off later, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you always figure it out. You
I
always
guess,
figure it out.
yeah.
No, that's really interesting. And so when you first started in the insurance industry, I know you mentioned that you had a mentor. Is this what you learned from your mentor, or were there other, coaches or resources that you were using to really learn all the ins and outs of business?
Yeah, so my mentor taught me about business and how to run my business and how to treat clients and be professional and sell. So he was a really big impact on who I am today and how I run my business today. But as for finances, honestly, I just like did that on my own. Like,
Yeah.
he of course like made more money than me. So for him, finances were like not an issue. He just kind of like was able to pay his bills. And I know a lot of, if you make a lot of money, that's, going to be taxed at the highest tax bracket. A lot of people I know open up like an S corp or an LLC at the advice of their accountant or financial planner. So if that's your case, maybe reach out to one of them and see if that works for you. So I know some people do that, but yeah, he didn't really advise me financially, but sales
Yeah.
wise, he did.
Yeah. And, we always take what we can get and learn as we go. So I think that's really, really inspirational for the listeners to hear your story. A lot of the listeners are just starting off, or they really want to take that leap into entrepreneurship, or maybe they're in their first couple years but are looking to up level. And I don't think we ever stop learning. We never stop learning. And honestly, it sounds like insurance is a career that you can have for the rest of your life. It sounds like there's a lot of opportunities and you can work as much as you want, as little as you want. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. So you really can tailor it to, your work schedule, your, hours. However much
Yeah.
you work is how much you'll make. So that's what I really like about it. And another good thing is you can get paid year after year. So if you have a client you're keeping for years, like I have some clients I met like when I first started who are still with me 5 years later. I'm still making commission off of their insurance policy, and that adds up year after year. So once you have a certain amount of clients, like you can eventually just live off your commissions, and you don't have to even work. All you have to do is maintain your book. So that's like my big goal, is to get to that point where I don't even have to actively work and get new business. I can just kind of keep what I have, and I can just, use it as more of like a passive income. But for now,
Yeah.
I know I have to put the work in to kind of get to that end goal.
For sure, for sure. But that's really cool that you do see that angle in mind and you're able to take the steps now to be able to reach that. So I'm curious, do you think anyone could do insurance as a side hustle if they didn't want to go all in, or do you think it's too much work to side hustle?
Yeah, so a lot of people actually start it as a side hustle. I was
Mm,
different because I had the time to do it full time. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a lot of bills, so I was kind of like a different case. But a lot of people I know, especially if you're older or have had a career, like a different career before insurance, they start it as a side hustle. And the reason why is so you can kind of have that other income coming in, because it takes you about 3 years, like 2 to 3 years, to really build up your business to actually see results. And 92% of insurance agents fail within their first year and they quit. So that
wow.
leaves you like 8% of people who start are actually still in it today. So
Wow.
if you
I
start
didn't
it,
know that.
yeah, right. And if you start it like part time, then you might have a greater chance at success and more confidence. And, once you start getting more clients and it just becomes harder to manage them on a daily basis, or you just find you're making more money from that than your full-time job, that's when people like make the transition.
Oh my gosh. Well, I was already impressed that you've been doing this for 5 years, and now I'm even more impressed. So congrats. That's really cool. Why do you think they failed? Do you think it's, not setting realistic expectations or not seeing the results they want to see and then they just give up? Or what do you see being in the industry?
Yeah, I think that's definitely it. People, they compare. I know I did this when I first started. They would compare themselves to people who had been there for, longer than them. And they also want to see instant results. They want to, they see how much money you can make, and they want to see like, oh, I want to make like six figures this year. Well, I don't know, unless you really hit it big, which some people do with like good marketing, or you know maybe they hit like a good lead source or something. Unless you hit it big and you're in like the right place at the right time, like you're not going to make a ton of money your first year, especially if you don't have sales experience. Like the people I know who are really good their first year and who make a ton, they're working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they probably have had some sort of sales experience.
Yeah.
So it is rare to find people who literally have no experience, or maybe they're just like naturally good at it. I know I wasn't naturally good, so I just have to keep learning. But I think managing expectations is really important. And then another thing is people just they forget about the fact that once you get clients, you have to keep those clients. They chase after the new business, and I think they fail because once the business dries up, like you're outside of open enrollment, you forget like you have clients on your books. So those people can cancel on you. So if you don't keep them, suddenly the commissions you were banking on are gone. So I think that's a big part of failing, because to have a business, you have to keep it. So when your business is canceling and falling off the books, like, yeah, you're not going to make any money.
Yeah, right, right. I know that's a big part of you want more clients, for any industry. You always want to bring on more clients, but truly you do want to keep the ones that you have. You already have them. You want to keep them. It's an easy sale to like keep selling to them. So 100% I totally see how those can be easy things that people can, you know, and maybe misleading in their minds. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to make it big with this," and then they don't and then they just give up. I think that's pretty common for a lot of industries. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm wondering if you have any last tips for anyone wanting to break into the insurance agency, or even for entrepreneurs who are wanting to, learn a little bit more about insurance for their own business.
Yeah, so first of all, I would say find a mentor. For me, that was very important. And finding one's actually pretty easy. You can just kind of, find someone you like, who you get along with and you really like their leadership style, or you just really respect, and just ask them like, "Hey, can I shadow you? Can you mentor me?" A lot of times they'll say yes, because they kind of remember what it was like
Hmm.
being starting out. And all you do is basically take what they do, copy paste, and then put your own flair on it. That's all it is, to, take what a mentor teaches you. And then they also help you with, the struggles of, hey, I'm going to quit. And then they tell you, no, no, stick with it. So,
Yeah.
that's why it's important to have a mentor. Another thing I think is important is be willing to invest in your business. So when I first started, I was like putting any extra money I had into my business. So anything I needed to pay for, I would, buy an extra lead. I would spend it on marketing. I would, whatever I could do, I would put the money in it. So if you're willing to invest in your business or invest in the opportunity, then I think that's going to be a good way to break into the insurance world. And then another thing is just be willing to learn as much as you can. I think for me, starting out, since I was so young, I felt like people didn't really take me seriously, especially because I do telesales over the phone. So people don't see me.
Hmm.
So, with being able to learn and be a subject matter expert at what you do, I think it kind of gives you an edge, because when people ask you questions or you want to talk about a certain product or a topic, you'll sound more professional and you'll just sound like more experienced than you really are. And all you did was you just read about it, you watch videos, and there's so many resources out there. So it's really easy to gain that knowledge often for free on YouTube or podcasts or books. So it's really I would say there's really no excuse to kind of say like, oh, I didn't learn it. Well, you could have. So
Yes.
that's one thing. And then a final thing I would say is my mentor that really stuck with me that he told me was do what you say you were going to do. And that it's so simple, but I feel like it's something people forget. Like if you say you're going to have it by that deadline, have the project by that deadline. If you're going to call them tomorrow. And people really appreciate that. So in my experience, that is what really makes you successful. And it's just such a simple tip that anyone can implement in their business. And it just makes you look very professional and, you know, just sets you above anyone else.
Yeah, those are great tips. Thank you so much for sharing those. I think that's really a great way to wrap up this episode. So, Catherine, where can people connect with you if they either want to talk about insurance or just, get to know you a little bit more?
Yeah, so my website is katherinephillipsinsurance.com. And you can go on there, learn about insurance. I write blog posts, so education about insurance, different topics. And then I also have a Facebook page, so it's healthmarkets.katherinephillips. So you can go on there and learn more about insurance as well. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. I do post a few things. It's just Katherine Phillips on LinkedIn. So that's really it. And in this show notes, I did put a link if you want to schedule a free consultation with me. Just, call me, schedule it, and we'll just talk about insurance. Even if you want to compare your benefits, your employer versus what you could potentially get, yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Very cool. Is that for Florida residents or is that for anyone anywhere?
No, so I'm licensed in 10 states. I'd be happy to do it for anyone and anywhere, but 10 states I can only enroll you in, but all 50 states I can talk about insurance.
Very cool. That's awesome. Cool. Then I will definitely include that in the show notes, and anyone who's interested, definitely go book a call with Catherine. Catherine, I just have one last question for you. This is how I wrap up every episode. I'm curious if you could share 3 action steps for the audience to take this week to move forward in their business or their life or anything you want to challenge them with. Just 3 steps.
Yeah, sure. So, step one, I would say, is don't fear failure or rejection. I feel like that is one thing that holds us back as, being an entrepreneur. You're going to send that email or that cold call and people are not going to respond. You're going to put that video or post out, no one's going to like it. But honestly, like, that's life. You're going to be rejected. So just do it anyway. It is what it is, but don't, fear it. It's going to happen.
Very cool. Very cool.
And then my next one would be dream big. I think when I first started, I had these really big dreams about what I wanted my business to be. And I think I've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. So I need to, keep my dreams alive, keep dreaming big. So I think it's a good thing to kind of, keep your dreams open. You just never know what will happen. And maybe one day you'll achieve them, even if it's not tomorrow, like it could be someday. So don't limit yourself.
I love that.
And then my third thing would be help others and the money will come. So this is very important to me because chasing money in any industry, people will really they'll know that you're chasing money and chasing the next sale and the next client. But what's really important is how you make people feel. So people really want to work with you based on the experience you give them and how you made them feel at the end of the day. And if you made them feel like you gave them a custom service, you listened to them, you were attentive with their needs, they are going to stay with you for years, they'll refer you. And ultimately, that's how you're going to get the most satisfaction and the money will come.
I love those. Those are great action steps. Those will be in the show notes for anyone who wants to look over those. But Katherine, thank you so much. I learned a lot in this episode and can't wait for this to go out. When is open enrollment, by the way?
Yeah, so open enrollment it is November 1st to January 15th for people who are under 65. And then if you are over 65, you're Medicare eligible. It is October 15th to December 7th.
Perfect. Good to know. It's coming up.
It is coming up. So, call me and set a time and we can look at your plan and kind of see what's going on.
Awesome. How far in advance should people be in contact with you before, November 1st?
My calendar's already open for November 1st. So,
Cool.
you can book a time today and schedule on November 1st. So it
Perfect.
fills up. We start now because it's a very busy season. It's the only time of year to enroll. So if you don't have insurance, this is the time of year to get it for January 1st start date. So, don't wait. Even if you're like, oh, I don't know how much it'll cost, like it might be too expensive. You don't know that because you didn't look it up or maybe you got a bad source. The only person who can really give you the best advice is a licensed broker. So,
Yeah.
that's really who you should be working with because there's a lot of misinformation these days.
Very cool. So thank you so much, Katherine. This has been such a great episode, and I've learned a lot from you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.